What's going on, guys? My name is Caleb with Incline Performance Therapy. Today I want to talk about baseball pitchers getting back to their natural arm slot after a throwing related injury or a shoulder or elbow injury. Sometimes what we see in pitchers after a shoulder or elbow injury is they drop their elbow down, they drop their arm slot as a compensatory mechanism, maybe to alleviate pain, maybe to reduce tension in a certain area. They might be fearful of moving through their normal position. They also might just not have gotten comfortable with their prior pitching mechanics, and they just never readapted and got back to what they were doing before. So some things that we want to look for, and taking video is probably the best way to look at this, where you can look at the back and even from the side and even the front to show where the arm slot is and what your overall mechanics are doing. What we do know is that the shoulder doesn't really work in isolation. It's positioned as a consequence of other body movements, to include your legs, your trunk, and maybe even the pitch that you're trying to throw. One thing that's very common is that if your arm slot's dropping down, you're probably have tilted your trunk and your shoulders as well. Most of the time, baseball players are pretty good at finding their natural throwing position, and so the release point might be lower, but it's because the shoulders have tilted as opposed to tilting to the side, to the opposite side, if they're trying to throw from a higher arm slot. This is why oftentimes a middle infielder, for example, will drop down and they'll feel like they're throwing underhand or sidearm, but really all they've done is they've turned their shoulders and are having that quick release point. So the first thing, and probably the easiest thing to adjust, will be to just tilt your trunk when you're going through that pitching motion and see if that elevates your elbow or your shoulder to a point that is more in line with your prior mechanics. So I have some drills that I want to work through in order to show you what it would look like to pull down a little bit more on that forward side, and that way you can hopefully increase that arm slot if that's something you're dealing with. So here I have a towel, and I'm not a huge fan of the towel drill, but in this case it might be helpful just to demonstrate what we're trying to do. So if you take your stretch position and we go through what may be a low elbow position, what that'll look like right here. So that would be maybe a little bit lower arm slot. And now this time I'm going to engage my obliques on my forward side and really trying to crunch down. And this is going to change the angle of my shoulders to elevate my throwing arm. So with that second demonstration, I really pulled with my obliques on the forward side to tilt my trunk and elevate my arm angle. Using a plyo ball might also be a good option here because it mimics throwing with a baseball a little bit closer. This is a 150-gram ball. I try to keep it as close to an actual baseball weight as possible, right? So again, I'll demonstrate a low elbow angle throw, and then we'll demonstrate a high one after that. And here we'll show engaging those obliques on the front side. So you can see the difference between engaging the obliques and not focusing on those as intensely. Some cues, if you're trying to cue this in yourself or in a pitcher, will be to crunch that front side, and that'll get them to kind of condense on this opposite side or the lead side, and that can elevate the arm. You can also think about it as pulling down and back with the lead arm, and that will also result in that kind of crunch position or that tilt to the outside and increase that arm angle as well. So if your release point or your throwing arm slot is not where you want it to be, either you're recovering from a throwing related injury or you just want to increase that angle a little bit, try tilting and engaging those obliques a little bit more and focusing on that in these drills, and then take that onto the field, and you have to apply it in warm-ups and in the bullpen, especially if you want to see it translate to the game.